first item is Ms. Kelly Koska is here regarding vacation buyback and carryover. Gentlemen, you both have the memo. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to speak to it at all? Or,
No, I'm
okay.
just here as an observer.
I think the memo speaks for itself. Gentlemen, any thoughts, and how you want to proceed?
The only thing I would say is Ms. Koska in the assessor's office has a rationale behind the carryover, whatever we're gonna do with it, but she's been, she was down a clerk for a couple of months, I believe. 6 months, and then she had to go out on an emergency surgery, so I'm glad to see everything worked out well for you there, Kelly, but
Thank you.
usually, you know, I feel about carryover, right? You can't use it this year. What makes me think you're using it that year? I think she's requesting 65 hours, so.
Of a buyback,
What's that?
of a buyback, not to carry over, to compensate. That was
Okay.
the request on the memo, but I'm willing to entertain.
No,
anything
that's
the board
that's
is
fine, because I was
willing
gonna
to
actually say that, Kel. I was gonna
appreciate
say, you
that.
know what? If we did that, that's a lot to carry over, so I was gonna mention the buyback. So if we have the funds to buy back 65, I would endorse that 100%.
Okay. Good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for your
gentlemen.
service. All right, next item, we've got a couple DPW issues we've got to resolve. Turn it over to Mr. Kelly. I know Mr. Gasper's been doing a lot of work with the DPW as well, so.
We've been reviewing the FY25 budgets. We've got some cost overruns in some line items, and we've got some other line items that it looks like there's excess. So at the end of the year, it's good to freeze everything, you have DPW come in at the next meeting, and then have them explain their plans and have the board have total oversight over it. And so I would like to ask that spending freezes in DPW budget, highway, CMAS, and also, as you know, deficit spending's allowed in the snow and ice, but we've had a couple expenditures real recent, and we've got some others coming down the pike as far as the bonus for the plow drivers that will put this up close to 40,000 in deficit. So I'd like the board to freeze those other than the energy cost for highway, and then have a real review of that before the board with the DPW.
Okay. And look, I think this is warranted. Obviously, it's a critical function, but to be honest with you, it's not the worst practice for other departments in town to make sure that we're staying on course. And you know, as we're coming down to the end of the fiscal year, we just want to make sure that there isn't any unnecessary spending, and that we do a critical review, you know, of everything that we're purchasing. So, gentlemen, any thoughts?
I've had some conversations with Mr. Kelly and our accounting department with some of the line items, deficit spending. You know, if you have an overall budget, I get it, but when you have certain line items and you have a certain amount allocated in a line item and your deficit spending by, you know, $30,000, $40,000, whatever the amount would be, it's just, are we doing realized budgets, or are we just saying it's fine the way it is and we can scramble money around it on itself because the overall budget amount is set here,
right,
and we can do things. And I know past practice has been that, but given the state of finances in the town right now, we really need to start looking at budgets a little bit closer, and I think that's what accounting's finally starting to do now that we have the new hire as the assistant town accountant. She's really diving into these things, and when I see some of these line items and I see some of the expenditures that are taking place, and Mr. Kelly would ask me to some of the invoices that are being expended for, we'll just go with snow and ice removal, You know, I talk from an accountant standpoint because I've done a lot of things in my past, and I look at things and you're charging the snow and ice, but only the best you could do is justify 50% of that invoice to be charged as snow and ice. It's just not another slush fund, right? And I think we need to be more conscientious of what that is, right? And I think that's the message we need to drive, is say, pay attention to what you're doing. And just because that's there and we know we can deficit spend from snow and ice, doesn't say that that's what you're gonna do. And some of the items that have been purchased, you know, I look at them and I can say 50% of the invoice, right, can be used for snow and ice, because the truck's used 6 months out of a year, pretty much for snow and ice. But other than that, I can't justify 100% of the expenditure to snow and ice. So it's things like that we'll have that conversation, continue to work with the accounting department, continue to work with staff at DPW so they have a better understanding of what's the board's objective is moving forward. So I'd move to freeze encumbrances to or expenditures from any expense line in fiscal year '25 Department of Public Works Highway except energy without the express permission of the Board of Selectmen. And I move to freeze encumbrances to or expenditures from the fiscal year 2025 budget Department of Public Works snow removal ice control without the express permission of the Selectmen. And I also make a motion to move to freeze encumbrances to or from the fiscal year 2025 budget Department of Public Works CMAS without the express permission of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Motion's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Great. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next item number 4, beach pass update. And I just wanted to put this on the agenda, not to beat a dead horse, but to report back that on, was it Tuesday, we hosted the first iteration of beach passes. It was a first come, first serve. As you know, we've got a lottery that's coming up next, but I just want to really recognize the work of Sydney Viveros and Karen Morello and Lauren Golder. Really pulled off the operation at the Council on Aging. But also, I gotta credit the residents. I hadn't had a chance. I saw, Mr. Hinckley was there with his daughters. Spent a couple hours. I had so much fun talking to the residents in line. It was really gratifying to see. It was just an enjoyable experience, and it really couldn't have happened without the great work of Sydney and the team, and Karen and Lauren. And so hats off to the residents. There were some folks who were disappointed, but they understood. I thought it was just really good to be a part of, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
And I want to really second that. I think Sydney did a really good job putting this all together, kind of based on us saying, yeah, let's figure it out. And Sydney really grabbed the ball and ran with it on this, so thank you, Sydney. And I didn't get to stick around as long as you because I had to get the kids to school, but it was nice seeing people excitedly waiting in line. And, people got there really early, which was kind of wild.
Yeah.
But even, like you said, there were some disappointed people, but, with the lottery available coming up too, the odds are pretty good, which is a good thing. Nobody's ever going to be perfectly happy. We can't make this work for everybody that's interested, but I think this is a good way to jump off with this and refine the process.
Yeah.
I think we put the ball in Sydney's court and she ran with it, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Can I say something about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
residents? I was so impressed with the patience and the kindness that we were given through the process, and obviously it wasn't as fast as I hoped it would be because it was our first time going through, but they were so great, and thank you to the residents
Yeah.
for doing that.
Good
for being
stuff. All right, thank you. All right, next, gentlemen, I put on this, on the agenda, town administrator, town accountant search update. Last week we met in executive session. We've got a number of resumes that have come in on the town administrator stuff. We've got a ton of resumes that have come in on the town accountant position. And I think, some communities, they'll hire a firm to do searches and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that we need to go in that direction. But what I'd like to propose for the board to consider, and then we can ratify it next Tuesday, but what I'm proposing is sort of an internal screening committee, with the town accountant position. Things have changed. You know, we've got a really good internal candidate that could be part of that process, but I do think we owe it to ourselves to just at least go through that process and see who's available and who's out there. And what I would suggest is, Mr. Gasper, if you would be willing to kind of be the de facto chair of that, but Mr. Gasper, you're sort of our financial expert on the board, to work with a member of the finance committee. I know Sue Delgado has had an interest. I would reach out to, maybe Jesse Ellis from the school committee, who's newly elected. It could be good experience to be part of this, and Mr. Kelly, just to kind of go through the resumes, come up with, a bunch of candidates that we could bring in for an interview. But I also would encourage us to look internally. We've got Jamie who's doing a great job, and I wouldn't want to shut her out of that process. So if you're willing to do that, Mr. Gasper, we can reach out to those folks and try to cobble it together. And then on the town administrator side of it, I like to run a similar track as a member of the Board of Selectmen to oversee that. And another member of the finance committee, I know Doc Boucher might have an interest in that. Mr. Kelly, and I would say somebody maybe who's serving on the master plan committee, like a Ryan Resendes or a Jesse St. Gelais or someone like those gentlemen, to get their insight on that. Again, go through the resumes, schedule some interviews, and then come back to the board with recommendations. And I don't know, Mr. Hinckley, I know you got a lot on your plate, and you spent the last year working as chairman, but give you the right of first refusal. If you're interested, great. If not, I'd be more than happy to volunteer doing it.
I would graciously pass.
Okay.
Not because I don't want to be involved with it. I just have some catch-up work to do, and I don't think I'd be able to put in the appropriate amount of time.
Fair enough.
For a separate committee, personally.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
great idea to do this. The only thing I will do is ask Mr. Kelly to look into the logistics of how we proceed with a small subcommittee like
Right.
the chairman is wondering about. And then, because I went through some of the town administrators ones, and I was kind of giving notes on it, and I was going to pass that off and say, hey, this is my input on the pile of town administrator ones. Take it for whatever you want, not knowing what we were going to do with this, but that's kind of what I've always done. My past practice is go through the pile, and I get a no pile, I get a maybe pile, and I get an absolute pile. And I think we could all do that same thing, even with the town accountant's positions. If you want to screen them and just say, you know what, I have no interest, and if we all have the same opinion after you give them to the town administrator, it saves us some screening time.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe the top 5 that we feel is the best. Right, and ultimately it's all coming back to this board anyway for a final decision. We just got to keep in mind that once we get through that small screening process and we hoop ourselves through that, whoever the screening committee says, hey, we'll throw 3 candidates back to the full board, right? Top 3 from the screening committee, whatever it may be, we'll throw those back to the board and see what they have to say. If we were to bring them in, you have to request permission from the individual. And before you put their name on an agenda.
Of course.
And say, are you okay with us putting, because some folks may be still in their spot somewhere else, and they might at that point go, no, I'm not interested in doing that. I don't want it to be known that I'm out looking for jobs, right? So out of respect to them, and there's some legalities to it as well of doing this. I've done it in the past, and you have to make sure that you understand what you can and can't do. So I would just ask Mr. Kelly to, either if you already know the protocol, or talk to Darren Klein, town council, and just say what is the protocol.
I've been through it before.
I know. I'm just making sure we don't skip a beat and then we're getting the guy from Tennessee, Alabama, wherever he's from.
Right. You raise a good point too, and I don't know, since all the folks that we're looking to draw from are already either elected to a board or appointed to a board, can we draw from that, or do we have to get them, do we have to create a special committee so we can just pull them together and we don't have to go through a swearing in and all that stuff, right? Because it's advisory and ad hoc.
No, it's a review.
Okay, good. All right, just want to make sure, but those are great points, Mr. Gasper. And I think once we get to that, we'll make sure that
Just to protect
we got
us,
some
that's all
guidelines in
I'm trying to
place.
do.
So, all right, so why don't we do this? We'll work on trying to assemble the participants, and then we'll come back on Tuesday, get it on the agenda, and then we'll formally vote to create it. But I just at least want to get that concept out there to you gentlemen, and I think at a minimum, you know, we'll bring some folks in, they understand what's going on behind the curtain, they understand the process, and I think it'll be good for us. We haven't done it in a while, and it's good to kind of shake off the rust.
We've been part of this, these search people that do this stuff, and you pay a decent amount of money for it to happen, and, you know, no disrespect, but not such good results, right? And you're paying all
You
that
get the
money,
same,
and you're waiting all that time.
same list of names from all of them.
This is why we get elected to do jobs like this. Right. So, anyway. All right, well, good stuff. Gentlemen, anything on the Selectmen's announcements?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to let everybody know, if it's tomorrow morning you do not see me participating in the baseball parade, it's because I'm attending a celebration of life for Chris Golda, lifelong resident of the town of Acushnet, at the Council on Aging tomorrow morning from 10 to 12. So I will be attending on behalf of the board, representing the board at the celebration of life for Mr. Golda. And I know that
I'll be at the baseball game representing the board.
Parade, whatever Mr. Hinckley's going to do. I just want the people to know that I'm not being disrespectful to the baseball parade, the celebration of life. I've known this individual my whole life. Great guy, sad loss for the community, but it is what it is, and you know, I feel like I need to make a presence at this. You know, I've known the family forever.
Well,
So
thank you for representing the board.
you're welcome.
Mr. Hinckley, anything on the announcements?
Okay, good, sir.
All right, very good. It is Mother's Day this weekend.
Oh,
For those of moms out there, for those of you who have moms, give them a hug. For those of you who don't have moms or lost a mom, I know I have. I know Mr. Gasper has. You know, I know Bob's mom has gone through some health challenges. So big hugs to all the moms out there, and thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.